No immediate hurry for the police, then. You asked me if you were sane. You appear sane enough to me. But any of us, given the circumstances, may develop hallucinations that have all the force of reality. You may be under a hallucination now. On what evidence do you think you killed Jimmy Loftus? Sir Humphrey smiled again grimly. On the evidence of all my senses, Quayne. There is no hallucination about this. I woke up at 7 o'clock this morning to find myself in my own sitting room, still in my dress clothes, and to see Jimmy Loftus, also in his evening kit, sitting crumpled in a chair with a bullet wound in his head. My own revolver was lying on the floor, one chamber recently discharged. I had a smear of burnt powder on the fingers of my right hand. More than that, I had suddenly an overpowering conviction. I had a queer, vivid mental picture of the act, as though someone were calling it up in me, that I had myself shot him. Without a motive? QQ interjected the question. Without the slightest motive. Jimmy and I were the closest pals, the nearest thing I ever had to a brother. You can guess my horror at what I saw. Sir Humphrey's grim mouth clenched tight again for a moment. The only explanation I can give myself is that although I've never had the slightest symptom of epilepsy, I did it in a sort of epileptic fit. If you had done it in an epileptic fit, you would probably have remembered nothing at all about it when you woke up, and you do remember, you say. Yes, in a queer sort of way. I remember it as one remembers a somnambulistic act performed in a dream, like something divorced from one's real self. Half of me protests violently that I did not, could not do it. Yet if I were challenged, I could not help but say with full conviction, automatically, ghastly and motiveless as the thing is, yes, I did it. In fact, there's an immense and curious impulse in me, the usual murderer's impulse, I suppose, to rush out and proclaim the fact. That was why you were going to the police station. Sir Humphrey shrugged his shoulders. You can't expect a man of my stamp to give himself the ignominy of dodging the police. There's the fact. I must take the consequences. I prefer to go halfway to meet them. It leaves me some personal dignity, at any rate. Why was Jimmy Loftus in your rooms last night? We'd had a little dinner party. A party? There were others then. 2. But they left soon after 11. Who were they? A Russian refugee aristocrat, Count Morofiev, and his daughter, Countess Stravinsky. Indeed. QQ leaned back in his chair, tapped his fingertips together. Let's have the whole yarn, Mole. Why did you have those 3 people to dinner last night? It must have been something important to have brought Loftus out. Sir Humphrey paused to revive the glow of his cigar, to collect his thoughts for a commencement. There's something in your guess about the Indian government, Quayne. I have been approached. I'd more than half promised to go out again, in fact. Naturally, I began to sit up and take a little notice of things Indian again, to scrounge around for scraps of useful information. About 10 days ago, I met a couple of very interesting people. Met them at my sister's house. This Count Morofiev and his daughter, regular ancien régime, red-hot anti-Bolshi. It was the lady I got into conversation with first. Fascinating creature, beautiful. And she did me the honour of knowing my name, a compliment rare enough to be appreciated. He smiled grimly. She asked me if I were going back to India. I have a non-committal sort of answer. As you know, I'm not the sort that unbosoms himself to casual ladies. And then I had a shock. Because if you are Sir Humphrey, she said, I can give you some information that will be of the greatest use to you. Would you like to put your finger on Tretiakev? You can imagine I sat up pretty sharply and took quite a lot of notice at that. Only the very inner circles even know the name of Tretiakev, the most elusive bird and the hidden manipulator of all the Soviet intrigues in India. At that moment her father came up, a white-haired, intellectual-looking little dwarf.